oh, they're just so angry that the White House was lying about everything. And, oh, come on, Jake Tapper. You think any of us believe that you were actually angry about this? Take a look at this report from Axios. Biden aides discussed wheelchair use if he were reelected, new book says. These people knew the whole time that Joe Biden was infirm, and their own cult-like idiocy is why Democrats lost. They could have said, no, we're not going to have Joe Biden, but the reality is Democrats don't have any major players. Let's hear it from Jake Tapper and his faux outrage.
Jake is here to join us now. I'm curious about what his advisors were saying at the time as you look at this, as you reported out this book.
So the White House physician, Dr. Kevin O'Connor, was telling White House aides that President Biden's deterioration of his spine, the degeneration, was so significant that if he fell one more time, that he might have to be in a wheelchair and serve in a wheelchair for his second term. But everybody pushed off the notion that he use a wheelchair until after the election. This is all part of a larger whole where the Biden White House tried to hide the extent of his deterioration, both physical and cognitive, as
so
much
did
as
you. So did you, Jake Tapper.
Possible. In fact, as we all saw, as his shuffling gait got worse and worse from 2003 to 2004, they started putting aides around him as he walked to Marine One, the helicopter that was to kind of hide from public view how bad his gait was, how bad his walking was, his shuffling, and also in case he stumbled again to make sure somebody was there. And this is just of a piece of an overall campaign to try to conceal from the American people the extent to which the president was really struggling to do his job.
It's just laughable coming from CNN, isn't it? As if Jake Tapper and these other people in the media did not know. And I'll give a shout out to Alex Thompson, who was speaking at the White House Correspondents' Party or dinner or whatever. And he was like, we really dropped the ball on this one. He's not really British. He's an American guy. But, I like doing that because it sounds snooty. Y'all knew. Y'all knew. I can't stand this, man. What I really can't stand is everybody lying all the time. That's what really grinds my gears, And I think it's a childhood trauma that I experienced where when I was a kid, the schools were lying about things. You know what I mean? And then when I found out that maybe I should have stayed, when I found out they were lying, I was like, I am sick of these liars about everything. Just tell us the truth. And that's just me. I understand some people is real dumb. You know what I mean? But still, I feel like for a decentralized system, the best thing that we can do is inform the public to the best of our abilities and then be persuasive. Be good at what we do. Instead, they lie, cheat, steal, and obfuscate, and that really pisses me off. I remember when I was a little kid, and they tell you things in 1490. I remember this one. This one was big. 1492, Columbus sailed the ocean blue and discovered America. They told all of that in school. The problem was I had parents who were like, well, Leif Erikson was here before that, in like Newfoundland, which is the American continent. And then I'm like, why did they say it was Christopher Columbus? I don't know. And so I go to school and I'm like, actually, there was a Nordic guy who was in the Americas first, but he was in the North. Nuh-uh, teachers, oh man, I just don't want to hear it. Okay? They're like, kids are dumb. Don't tell them the truth. I don't want to hear it. This is how these elites and Democrats view the world. They treat millennials like their children. Millennials are in their 40s. It's really funny because for a long time, we'd have these articles pop up where it's like, what are millennials up to now? And this was like 10 years ago. And people were like, yo, millennials are 35. I remember like 8 years ago, these articles popping up. Oh, millennials and their trends, acting like they're children. They were in their 30s. They should have been having kids and families. But they kept treating millennials who were adults like children, and they do the same thing to Gen Z. This perpetual infantilization is going to rip this country to shreds. Maybe that's the point. They want us to bring in a Joe Biden infirm president because they know it's better.
You have an entire White House press corps, though, following him around. And I'm just curious as to whether or not this kind of trying to hide what was happening with the president at the time had an impact on the press corps.
These
why
people.
Didn't we hear
Why didn't we hear
these details from what?
Why didn't we hear it? Why didn't we hear it, Jake? Why didn't we hear it, CNN?
They actually saw and were dealing with trying to get information.
Yeah.
Well, Alex Thompson and I were on the case, as were lots of other reporters, trying to figure out what was going on behind the scenes. But the bottom line is the White House was lying, not only to the press, not only to the public, but they were lying to members of their own cabinet.
How did we know? How did random dude who complains on the internet for a living know about this, Jake? And you, Mr. Professional Journalist, had no idea. Wow. You know what? You're right, Jake. You were befuddled, confused, tricked by the Biden administration. As a journalist, I say you should resign. It's time to retire because when you can't see things like this, maybe you just give up. See, the rest of us, we had actually pretty easy. For some reason, a guy named Cat Turd. Yeah, he's just on Twitter and his username is Cat Turd. And he knew, but you did not. I agree with you, Jake Tapper. Cat Turd is a much better journalist than you are.
They were lying to White House staffers. They were lying to Democratic members of Congress, to donors about how bad things had gotten. And in fact, Alex and I started writing this book after the election of 2024. And we spoke with more than 200 people, most of whom, almost all of whom, were Democrats, and almost all of whom wouldn't be honest with us or wouldn't be candid with us until after the election. And then after the election, we found out all of these things that when you looked at what was going on with President Biden at the time, it probably doesn't surprise you the extent to which he was deteriorating. But now we have anecdotes and facts about what was really going on behind the scenes with details that Democrats wouldn't share with us until after Election Day.
What do you mean, Jake? What do you mean they wouldn't share the details with you until after Election Day? Were you asking these questions before Election Day? Did you know before the election that Joe Biden was infirm and you just now found out? Can I play that back for you guys?
And in fact, Alex and I started writing this book after the election of 2024.
You started writing the book after the election. Continue.
And we spoke with more than 200 people, most of whom, almost all of whom, were Democrats, and almost all of whom wouldn't be honest with us or wouldn't be candid with us until after the election.
Whoa. Hey, that don't make no sense there, Jake Tapper. You didn't start writing the book until after the election, but you talked to people before the election about the book that you were writing? Interesting. I suppose the argument he'll make is, no. We were only doing research before the election. We didn't start writing it until afterwards. Okay, so when you are doing the research for the book, I largely consider that doing the writing because, like, you're collecting interviews and statements, right? You're making the book. Fine, make that argument.
And then after the election, we found out all of these things that when you looked at what was going on with President Biden at the time, it probably doesn't surprise you the extent to which he was deteriorating. But now we have anecdotes and facts about what was really going on behind the scenes with details that Democrats wouldn't share with us until after Election Day.
So the point is, they knew before the election, they knew the whole time, and they were lying to the American people. Joe Biden's brain wasn't working 2-3 years ago. He called Syria Libya. He's talking about getting involved in Syria, and he called it Libya. And I'm like, bro, if you're the president and you're in a meeting and you say, we need military action in Libya, and they go, are you sure? So, yeah, Libya. You go, okay, we'll draft up some plans. How are they supposed to know that you actually meant Syria? Now, here's the scary thing. Let's say he said Libya, and his chain of command then goes, we think he meant Syria. He was saying Libya. So they decide to operate how they see fit, targeting Syria. What happens then when a president actually does mean Libya? You cannot have a mentally infirm, try to be nice president like this. Democrats now are trying to claim the same thing as Trump. Like, Trump's old guy. He's an old guy, but he's spry. Okay? That's it. Trump isn't sleepy like Joe, but he is old. And this is going to be his last term. He's got a couple more years, and I fully expect, I do believe this, Trump will probably be deteriorating in office. Listen, I'm 39. I can already feel it in my bones, man. I don't skate like I did when I was 19. I mean, my bones is achy. Donald Trump is what, 78? In these next 3 years, decline is much more pronounced. That being said, Trump right now, Trump 4 years ago, he was capable of doing this job, and he still is. And he may be, by the time he gets out, the oldest president we've ever had. Indeed. If Trump starts deteriorating to the point where he can't walk and needs a wheelchair, then we will have that conversation. I don't think it's going to happen. It might, though. And it's fair to point out. I ain't going to lie about it if it does. Donald Trump was walking down a ramp that was wet, and he walked slow, and they said that he was infirm. And I'm like, guys, it's a wet ramp. I'm not going to rag on Joe Biden for the same thing. Joe Biden fell going up the stairs several times, okay? He's clearly losing his coordination and his strength. So listen, my point here, they're liars. They're lying. We know they're lying. They know we know they're lying. How stupid. I'll wrap it up there, my friends. Stay tuned. We got more segments. No, we have no more segments. We'll be back at 8 p.m. for youtube.com/TimcastIRL. Thanks for hanging out. We'll see you all then tonight.